One of the things I wanted to touch on is whether you think that there's a generational difference, perhaps, or an age difference in terms of how people view their debt and whether they see it, whether there's perhaps the same stigma attached to it, depending on what age group you find yourself in. Donna, do you want to touch on that a bit?
Yes. Uh, I do think there's a different upbringing, I guess, if that's the right word, in debt for somebody, age 65 or older versus somebody who's 18 to 30. I do think there's a different generational upbringing on how we feel about debt. And, nowadays, I think for the younger people that I meet with, it's more of the norm that it's just part of life to have this debt. Whereas maybe some of the seniors that we meet with, it's something that's just happened, if you will. They've been
Mhm.
helping family or not able to manage their budget. And so it's something that's happened. Whereas the younger people, it's more normal to have this debt. I mean, most people across Canada that do file an insolvency are in the 35 to 65 year age, which makes sense. But then there is a bigger percentage in the younger crowd than there is in the seniors, and has been for quite a few years. And I think it's the upbringing. And I know, in Alberta, they are trying to teach more every year about budgeting and credit and that kind of thing. They're trying to teach more and more of it in schools. Um, you find more and more information about that kind of thing online. So hopefully parents can pick up on it and start to teach their children what credit is, what's compound interest. To your point earlier,
Mhm.
people don't realize how much this interest adds up. And when you start to compound it, when you don't realize that $3,000 credit card can quickly be 20,000 before you're done. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's just a little bit of the upbringing and the how kids are being taught as to
Mhm.
what credit really is.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that's certainly my perception too. I mean, one of the things that concerns me a lot actually is our senior set because of the fact that, sometimes they'll have debt, and it really is like anathema to them to think of filing an insolvency proceeding, especially a bankruptcy. The B word is a particularly has a lot of stigma attached to it, and they don't want to go down that path. And yet, there are times when it's absolutely appropriate, and a lot of times it's you have a couple. Everything's going along reasonably well. They've got some debt, but it's manageable. And then one of them passes away, and the other one is left with a bunch of debt. And but they're so hesitant to call. And so, kind of what we touched on earlier about this the stigma and the fact it gets in the way of people seeking help. I think that's magnified for the older generations because of the way they were brought up, and it just seems like such an absolutely foreign concept to look at filing some sort of insolvency proceeding. But that's something that we have to try to work on, getting past so that they can get the relief that they need. And I think one of the things too, when people struggle with these things, that they need to realize is, for example, the bankruptcy law in Canada does not have a provision in it that says that after you get relief from your debts through some sort of insolvency proceeding, that you can't at some point pay them back later on. The law does not say that because legislators do not want to legislate morality. So if you decide at some point, if your situation improves down the road, and you're able to make more payments on your debts, you're entitled to do that if you want to. So sometimes even explaining that to people helps them to get past the fact that they need the relief now and they can get it. But if things change in the future, they have the option of making good on those debts if they're able to, and should they choose to. So.